Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I'm your host, Josh Stallworth, and welcome back to our FutureFight series for V-BT09, which is the something to Moonlight, Butterfly to Moonlight. Boom, we finally got it, Butterfly to Moonlight. But we have two more decks to cover this week. So today is Thursday. We're going to be covering the Scharhrot Vampire deck. This is the Dark Irregular variant of the deck that is coming out of this set. This deck is very, very strong. I would also say it's kind of equivalently strong to Night Rose. Definitely a top 5 deck, as it thins the deck out with soul charging, and then, you know, it gets big numbers and it kind of swings. I feel like there's a lot of different decks doing what Mordred did first, essentially. So that's what Scharhrot does. When Scharhrot swings, it restands rearguard. So essentially it is like a protect stronger version, or a faster version of Mordred Phantom, but also more defensive. You have like a bigger hand to be able to defend yourself while you're putting out that heavy offense as well. But we're gonna get right into the deck here. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below, click the bell button so you don't have to miss any future content going forward from us. Also, if you like the video, be sure to like it, comment down below letting me know your thoughts on the video or your specifics on your own build, or what you like to do with this deck. I'm sure that people would like to know as well. Also, be sure to check out my second channel, Let's Plays Animes, down in the description below if you're interested in anime, animation, or video games. And check out that join button down below as well if you guys are interested in putting a little bit more extra into Cardfight Empire. You want to, you know, become a member of the channel. But with that being said, let's get right into today's deck. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about the Scharhrot deck. So first of all, just like we covered Night Rose earlier in the week, Dark Irregular is a protect deck, just like Grand Blue is. So obviously it kind of plays defensive by nature. So you have a lot of natural offensive tools that are in this deck that pair really well with the fact that it is a protect deck, because, you know, you'll naturally be gaining a bunch of defense, and then with the skills that these cards offer you, you'll be gaining a bunch of offense as well. So it has a very nice balance and blend of both offense and defense. So let's get right into the grade 3s here. And in this deck, do we have grade 3s? We have more grade 3s than usual. We have 12 grade 3s, and I'm going to explain to you guys why. So we have 4 Scharhrot Vampire as our ace card. This is the card that you always want on your Vanguard on grade 3, like non-debatable, like this, it's really good, or non-negotiable, I should say. But its 2 Vanguard skills is A. The first skill is, at the beginning of your battle phase, all your front row units get power plus 1000 until the end of the turn for each card in your soul. So obviously Dark Irregulars is all about soul charging multiple cards, getting multiple cards in your soul. So, you know, easily you can have like 10, 13, you know, onwards of soul. So having your front row get an extra 10k or extra 13k or something like that is very, very good. It changes numbers, and it's also very good when you calculate in the second ability of Scharhrot Vampire, which is when it attacks counterblast 1, and you can stand one of your front row rear guards, and then if your soul has 13 or more cards, you can stand 2 rear guards instead of 1. So what this means is that you're able to swing with both of your high-powered rearguard columns, and then when Scharhrot Vampire attacks, you're able to counterblast 1 and restand 2, assuming that you have 13 in soul, and if you don't, then you're just restanding 1, which is still powerful. So yeah, definitely want to keep that in mind. Next up, for our grade 3s, we have 4 Abominable 1 Gilderai. So what Gilderai does is, this card actually used to be a stride, so it actually does something very different from what its stride form used to do, which is very interesting because I feel like all the cards have been similar up to this point. But Gilderai actually does something completely different, but it still works with the deck, so it's cool regardless. But let's talk about Gilderai's 2 abilities. So they're both Vanguard Rearguard. The first one is Vanguard Rearguard. When placed, you can counterblast 1 and call a grade 2 or less card from your soul to your rearguard circle. So obviously your ideal targets for this should be like Demonted if you need some soul charging. I like to call Familiar of Waters specifically, or Edge in the Darkness, because they both kind of bonus off of, first of all, Gilderai's being on the field, and then the other one bonuses off of being called off of Gilderai. So I go for those 2 targets all the time, and we also have fewer of them in the deck, so when you find them in the soul, you can just call them out. Now, something to be aware of is this does decrease your soul by 1, so if you are at that 13 card, you know, threshold in your soul, you probably don't want to use Gilderai's skill to call out a card from your soul, because then you're going to go down into 12 soul. Now, I will say if you call Edge of Darkness off of this card, Edge of Darkness will allow you to soul charge when it comes out. So that's like a free call, and you're also keeping that same threshold of soul that you had before, which is really good. Its second ability is when it attacks a Vanguard on Vanguard or Rearguard circle. If your soul has 10 or more cards, then you choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. Obviously, you know, minusing your opponent is always good, so retiring your opponent's rearguards on attack is very good as well, and it's not once per turn. So if you have this unit and you're swinging with it on a Scharhrot Vampire turn, and you restand it with Scharhrot Vampire, you swing with it again, you get to retire yet another rearguard. So very, very good to clear your opponent's board out, and yeah, not much to say besides that. Then our last grade 3 in the deck is for Number of Terror. So Number of Terror is a grade 3 unit that also has Protect. So if you ride it, it is awful, but I guess to me, at least you still get a gift off of it. Some grade 3s you ride and it's terrible and you don't get a gift. But let's talk about its 2 skills. So the first skill is when placed on the Guardian circle or the Rearguard circle. If your soul has 10 or more cards, this unit gets plus 10,000 power and plus 10,000 shield. So that's another reason why we're able to run 12 grade 3s in this deck, because this card can be shield value. So normally you wouldn't run a lot of grade 3s in a deck because you wouldn't want to clunk up your hand with cards that you won't be able to guard effectively with. But essentially this card turns itself into the shield value of a grade 1, which makes it, you know, decent to be able to run at 4. But also we run it for its second ability and how it matches up with Scharhrot Vampire, how it synergizes. So the second ability of Number of Terror is when it attacks on the Rearguard circle, if your soul has 10 or more cards, then you can put another Rearguard into your soul and draw 2. So basically what this means is that if you have the perfect setup with 2 Number of Terrors on the board, you're able to draw 8 in a turn outside of your drive checks. And then if you count your drive checks, that's 10 cards. So obviously it's a lot of plussing in this deck. And it can be a, you know, obviously with that as well, you're getting 4 Rearguards into your soul. So you're plussing your soul by 4, you're plussing your hand by 10, and it's just a lot for your opponent to deal with, and it's a lot of aggression at the same time. So moving on to our grade 2s, we have 10 grade 2s. We have 4 Demonted Executioner to start off with. This is our new ideal Vanguard ride for grade 2 in Dark Irregular. So it has 2 abilities. The first one is when it's on Vanguard circle and it attacks at grade 2 or greater, this unit gets plus 5,000 power into the end of the battle. So it's just something to basically equate you out to force decks. If a force deck rides a 10k Vanguard, normally you wouldn't be able to hit it without a booster. Boom, now you can because it's getting plus 5k, it's 14k, and if your opponent doesn't guard, they'll get hit. Same thing if your opponent is a 13k Vanguard, they will still get hit by this because it's 14k by itself. So it's just something to work into, you know, Demonted Executioner to make it, you know, be able to be unboosted and still hit your opponent's Vanguard. And then its second ability, which is the really good part of it, is Vanguard Rearguard Circle when placed. Counterblast 1, Soul Charge 3, and if you Soul Charge 1 or more trigger units, then you draw a card. So basically this card for Counterblast 1 just gets to do what Emblem Master cannot, pretty much, and it actually ironically does what old Emblem Master used to do. So basically you would Counterblast 1, you Soul Charge 3, and then if you Soul Charge 3 normal units, ideally that's what you want, so you won't draw a card. But they give you, you know, a little bit of leeway here, and if you Soul Charge any of your trigger units, you would get upset about that, or you would get sad about that, so they allow you to draw a card. It's like pretty fair, because if you don't Soul Charge any triggers, then all those triggers are still in your deck, and it's very likely that you will start to check them, which is very good as well. Then we have 4 Emblem Master, total staple in DI, always has been. I think both in Standard and Premium, this card is just way too good. But it has 2 abilities. The first one is continuous on Rearguard or Guardian Circle. If your soul has 7 or more cards, this unit gets plus 5,000 shield and plus 5,000 power. So it can become a 14k by itself, and it also becomes a 10k shield as well, similar to Number of Terror. So you guys can see here that we have a lot of naturally defensive options in this deck because there's a lot of shield value to go around between the Protect 1s, the free PGs. You have, you know, grade 2s and grade 3s that can be 10k shield. You have actual 10k shields. You have 30k shields. So it's a lot of defense for you to keep yourself alive. And then on the Rearguard Circle or Vanguard Circle, when it's placed, for its second ability, you can Counterblast 1 and search your deck and drop zone for up to 3 cards in total with the same card name as one of your units on the board. And then you can put them into your soul, and then if you search your deck, shuffle your deck. So this is pretty cool because this allows you to, you know, when you ride it, you can Counterblast 1 if it's the only thing on the board. You can search out all the Emblem Masters from your deck, automatically shove them to soul. I think ideally you want to use it on like Yellow Bolt, Succubus of Pure Love, Edge of Darkness, you know. Sometimes I use it on Gilded Ride, Number of Terror. It just really depends on the situation, but I'm just trying to get to that 13 soul threshold as soon as I can. And then our last grade 2, which is 2 Familiar of Water. Familiar of Water has a really good rearguard ability, which is once per turn. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, if the number of cards in your soul is 10 or more, countercharge 1. So this is really important because not only does Gilderai retire on swing, so then your opponent just can't, you know, interact with you at all or avoid the skill of Familiar of Water going off. So you could have a Familiar of Water in the back row, and then you could have a Gilderai in the front row because you don't need a booster technically because, you know, Scharhrot Vampire will boost up your front row. So when you swing with Gilderai, you will retire a card, and then because you have that 10 soul threshold, because remember, you wouldn't even be able to retire a card if you did not have 10 soul with Gilderai. So basically, if you have 10 soul with Gilderai, you swing, you retire a card, and then with Familiar of Water skill, you will countercharge 1. So that can be very useful for when you've run out of Counterblast, and you will not be able to use Scharhrot Vampire's skill that turn. Well, now, because of Familiar of Water, you can. Also, if you can't do that and you don't have access to a Gilderai, if your opponent has a front row rear guard, you can actually just swing into their front row rear guards, and if they choose to no guard, or you break the shield from attacking with Vanguard on their rear guard, it will give you back a counterblast because it still counts as a unit being retired during your turn. So very, very good card, but only to run it at 2. So then we have 4 Yellow Bolt for our grade 1s. So this is our ideal grade 1 that we'd like to ride. It has 2 abilities. The first one is when it attacks at grade 2 or greater on the rearguard circle, that you can soul charge 1 and this unit gets plus 5,000 power into the end of the battle. So this card can be a 13k attacker and also pluses you 1 in soul. So very good. And then its second ability is when rode upon, you may soul charge 2, and if you soul charge 1 or more trigger units, draw a card. So obviously when you ride on this card on Vanguard and then you go to grade 2, that is when this card skill activates. For our next grade 1, we have 4 Succubus of Pure Love. What Succubus of Pure Love does is it is our regular top 5 for a grade 3, and discard a card, which is very, very good in this deck as well because we run more grade 3s than normal. So we're able to get Number of Terror, Gilderai, or Scharhrot Vampire off of this card, which makes this card absolutely amazing in this build. So Vanguard Rearguard skill for the first skill, during your turn, if one or more of your cards were put into the soul by a card's ability, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, so it can become a 13k attacker or a 13k booster. Very good, or even bigger if it's in the front row when Scharhrot starts the battle phase. And then when placed from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you can look at the top 5 cards from your deck, reveal up to 1 grade 3 card from among them, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck, and if you put a card, discard a card. So obviously, if you're going second, you have access to a quick shield, discard that. If not, choose what you wisely, which you would like to discard for getting the grade 3 that you just got. Also keep in mind that when you discard a card off of Succubus of Pure Love, if you're going to go into something like Emblem Master the next turn or something like that, like let's say that you have 2 Emblem Masters, you can actually just top 5 for a Scharhrot, get the Scharhrot, and then discard Emblem Master, knowing that when you ride Emblem Master will search deck and drop zone for the copies of it to shove in the soul. So you basically won't be wasting resources in that way. Then for our grade 1, our last grade 1 in the deck, we have 3 Edge in the Darkness. This is obviously our secondary grade 1 that we'd like to ride when we don't ride Yellow Bolt. So this card has a Vanguard ability that says when placed, draw a card and put a card into, from hand into soul. So it's just a little bit of filter and +1 to your soul, which is always good in this deck. And then its rearguard ability is when placed, soul charge 1, and if it was placed by your card's ability, counter charge 1. So no matter what, when you place this card, you get to soul charge 1. However, if you're calling it off of an ability, which would obviously be from Gilderai, you get to counter charge 1, which makes the call absolutely free because Gilderai counterblast 1 to call it, and then it counter charges 1. So very, very good in unison with those two. So then for our grade 0s, we run 1 Wereflunder or Dons. This is our starter that, just like every other starter in the game, when rode over, draw a card, and then if our opponent's Vanguard is grade 1 or greater, we generate a quick shield ticket. So it can be used for shield or discarding effects, anything like that. Then for our triggers, we actually run 12 crit and 4 heal, so very aggressive build. What this does is this adds more shield to your hand since you have so many cards with shield. You don't really need draw triggers because you're soul charging a lot, and if you run draw triggers, I feel like you're going to risk decking out. So we just run 12 crit because of that. So we run 3 Blitz Ritter, 3 Dark Knight of Nightmare Land, 2 Werluch Feeder, 4 One-Eyed Succubus, so this is our Sentinel critical trigger, the 30k shield, and then 4 Alice of Nightmare Land. So that is the deck build, and then we're going to get right into the games here. So we're loading up Scharhrot 1. Sorry for the super loud sound. So it looks like for this game, we're going against Tachikaze. Looks like it is going to be the new Gaia deck. So this is a deck that comes out in the future past this set. So we go first. We ride. Our opponent rides Terra Feed, attacks us. And then we choose to block it because it has an on-hit skill. He goes for a draw trigger. And then we go for Demonted Executioner. Soul Charging 3, we draw a card, and then we play Familiar of Water. We use Yellow Bolt as well to draw a card. And then we attack Vanguard, we get a critical trigger. So that's another thing that randomly in the early game, you will check like a good amount of critical triggers. So you put your opponent to high damage very fast, and then the late game becomes even harder for your opponent to deal with because of your trigger ratios. So our opponent attacks us with his grade 2. We take a damage, attacks us for 9k, and then retires his card to make it 19. And we go ahead and block that with a 15k shield. We draw for turn, we ride Scharhrot Vampire, we go protect 1. And then we play an Emblem Master. And for Emblem Master, our target is Scharhrot Vampire because that is what, at the time, will add the most soul to us. So our front row gets plus 11k because we have 11 cards in soul. So we attack for 20, then 25, and as you guys can see, we countercharge 1 because of Familiar of Water. Then we restand Emblem Master because we do have access to that counterblast. And then we attack for 35. Our opponent was even confused a little bit because he asked why Emblem stood, and we said Vanguard. He didn't realize that we got a counterblast off of the Familiar of Water. So then our opponent rides Gaia Emperor, plays kind of a full board, and then attacks with Blue Sprint. Blue Sprint after the battle retires itself. And then he calls the Engorged unit off of it, and he gets a new equip gauge. Sorry, I said Engorge. I meant equip gauge. Engorge is the premium Tachi, mechanic. So we take a bunch of damage from our opponent, and then we block the remaining attacks. And then our turn comes again. We choose to play out Gilderai. So then we go for Demonted Executioner, counterbossing 1, Soul Charging 3. And all of them were normal units, so we don't draw. And then we call out Edge in the Darkness, and we soul charge. So now our front row has 14 cards in it. So we attack for 26, retiring a card. Attack for 28, and then attack for 34, counterboss 1, restand. And we check double critical because, like I said, we thin out our deck and we run 12 crit. So our opponent knew pretty much that if he PG'd this, regardless of what we did, we could have put a crit on either column. So if we double crit him like we did, I would have put a crit here and a crit here, and he still wouldn't have survived, even if he would have used those PGs in his hand. So loading up. Sorry, Scharhrot is so hard to spell, y'all. So hard, so hard. Alright, anyways, we're playing against Genesis in game 2. This looks like it is going to be a random Battle Deity of the Night Artemis build, focusing on the Divine Gauge. So we're all about gauges this video. First, Equip Gauge, second, Divine Gauge. So our opponent attacks us for 8, we take it. We ride Demonted Executioner, Soul Charges 3. We draw a card because one of the cards were a trigger. We go for top 5 with Succubus of Pure Love. We do get a Scharhrot Vampire, and we discard a card. Then we attack our opponent for 17. Our opponent takes it. Our opponent plays 2 Twilight Hunter Artemis, and I was very wary of these cards hitting just because they would be harder to retire in the later game. But to be honest, I could have just played face and not cared and been fine because my deck is indeed faster than his. So the way that I was playing was actually just slowing myself down, ironically. So I went for Emblem Master, and I put 2 Emblem Masters into the soul. I went for Succubus of Pure Love, top 5, and I whiff. And then I just choose to go attack from here because these number of terrors are not ready to be played yet. I do not have 10 in soul at all. And then I attack, his rear guard a number of times, and he blocks his rear guards. And so he puts this Twilight Hunter in the back row now, and he plays the Prometheus of Dancing Lights. We let the rear guard hit, and then we 2 to pass the Vanguard. which he does not get. On our turn, we ride another Scharhrot Vampire and then play a Number of Terror because we now have that 10 threshold. And we attack here, and then we realize that, you know, Scharhrot Vampire skill, we forgot to apply it. So our front row is supposed to get 11k. So we attack for 33, he takes it, and then we attack for 36. He no guards, and we get a critical trigger, giving crit to Vanguard, power to rear guard. And then we attack for 43, using the skill of Number of Terror to draw 2. So like I said, you guys can see how much we just plus doing that. And then our opponent is going for attacking for 17. And then attacks for 15 using the skill 5 and 5 to Vanguard. And then we PG the Vanguard pretty easy. And then next we ride a Scharhrot Vampire once again, increasing our soul by 1. And then we attack for 27, attack for 33, which our opponent PGs as well. And then we do check a heal, putting it to the go to ride column, and then we swing and we retire his grade 2 in the front row so that he does not have access to that to guard, and he takes it. I don't know why particularly, because it looks like he could have guarded it, but I think that he realized that if he guarded it, he would have had no resources left, and then I have, you know, 2 PGs and a bunch of shield in my hand, and so he wanted to bank on a heal there. So now loading up the last and final game, which is Scharhrot Game 3. We're playing against the same guy again. He brought it back for a run back, which is completely fine with us. So we ride Yellow Bolt, we attack, we get a Familiar of Water, good card. Our opponent rides Prometheus of Dancing Lights, and then plays 2 rear guards to rush us. We guard 1 with a quick shield, and then he attacks us with a rear guard Artemis, which we were deciding if we wanted to take, so we do take it this time around, and then he attacks us with Vanguard again, we take it. We go into Emblem Master, we use Yellow Bolt skill to soul charge 2, and then we use Emblem Master to get 3 Emblem Masters and put in the soul. So we're off to a pretty good start with our soul building, and then we call a Familiar of Water, and we call a Succubus of Pure Love. We get top 5 for a Go to Rye, which we do get, and then we discard a Go to Rye. And then we play a Yellow Bolt on the rear guard circle. So we attack for 22. And then we attack for 17 to Vanguard, and he blocks that. He goes for riding the Artemis, and then he goes for attacking 10 into our Vanguard, which we do block. He attacks for 13, we no guard, it's 2 crit. So we take 2 damage. And I was hoping that I hit a trigger, which I did. And then he attacks rear guard, which we block, because we did want our Familiar there. So I go ahead and call Emblem Master out of the soul using Go to Rye. And then I use Emblem Master to put 3 Scharhrots into the soul. And then I went ahead, and since I can't retire this, I went ahead and moved the Emblem Master to the front because it's just better there. I attacked for 27, and then I attacked for 35, restanding Emblem Master. And I actually attacked into his rear guard, which was pretty dumb. I feel like I should have attacked into his Vanguard, and I might have just won the game there. But I wanted to get rid of this because this is threatening to me, and I did not know what was in his hand. So he attacks with Vanguard, and we 2 to pass it. He does not get the 2 to pass, and then we block that 43 with APG. And then he attacks our rear guard for 13, which we intercept. And then for turn, we check top 5 for a grade 3. We discard a card. And now this is where this is important, because now we have, you know, Scharhrot skill can be online. So we attack with Go to Rye, we retire this. And then we also countercharge 1 because of Familiar of Water. He even asks how we got, you know, CB. So again, Familiar of Water, keeping things fresh, keeping things crispy. And then we attack with 27. Then we attack and we counter blast 1 and restand. We get a heal trigger, and we do heal. And then we attack and we retire his other front row rear guard. He goes for playing White Brush Witch Arctic, and then plays Perseus, a Moral Right. So he makes us retire a card off of the Artemis here. And then he attacks for 31, which we choose to guard for a 2 to pass. He does check a draw trigger and a heal trigger, all Vanguard, so the attack pushes through. But that's totally fine because he's unable to hit our Vanguard because of that. So he attacks into Vanguard to use the skill anyways, but he can't hit us. So then we play down a Number of Terror. We go for attacking for 30k. We retire his Perseus. and then we attack for 40, putting 2 into the soul, drawing 2 with Number of Terror. Then we counter blast 1, restand Number of Terror again, and then we do check a crit, putting it on Number of Terror on the rear guard, and then we swing and put a card in the soul and draw 2 again. And then for our opponent's last turn, he draws into Artemis and plays it on rear guard circle, so we 2 to pass, and he checks a draw trigger and nothing else, unfortunately, for him. And then we guard this 51k attack, and we move for turn, and pretty much is just a auto win from here. So we play a Familiar of Water in the back row. We play Demonted to Soul Charge 3. And then we attack, we retire 1, and because we do, we get to counter charge 1. And he goes ahead and takes that first attack, and it was going to be a double restand this turn because we had 15 cards in our soul. So that was game 3. I hope you guys enjoyed the video for the FutureFight Vanguard series of Scharhrot Vampire. If you guys did, be sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below on the video, letting me know your thoughts on the deck or maybe your specific build on the deck. I think, like I said in the very beginning of this video, I think this deck is very good. Definitely a top 5 contender and definitely worth building if you guys are interested in Dark Irregular. But with that being said, this has been Josh Stallworth from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on tomorrow's video. Peace, guys.